welcome back as we discuss U.S. immigration for Canadians. Today, the topic will be TN visas, and specifically the top 5 reasons that we see Canadians denied at port of entries for TN status. And many of these reasons for denial can be prevented, number one, through proper preparation, and they can be avoided altogether if you have the right paperwork and proper advice before you seek a TN visa at a port of entry. So make sure before you apply for a TN at a port of entry that that you take into account these 5 things that I'm going to discuss today so that you can prevent these issues at a port of entry. So the number one reason we see Canadians denied for TN at a port of entry is that the job that they're applying for is not a job listed under the USMCA professions or occupations list. And CBP is not only going to look at the title that you put on your TN application, but they're also going to pay close attention to the details that you put on that support letter from your employer. And if the occupation and duties are clearly not a match for a TN occupation, well, that's going to give the officer a very easy reason to deny your application. So before you apply for TN status, make sure that the occupation, the profession that you're applying for TN status under, is an occupation that qualifies for TN status. Number 2 reason we see these applications denied at a port of entry is the employer letter that is provided with the TN application doesn't meet the criteria and does not have the proper content necessary for a CBP officer to approve the application. And the most common thing we see here is that an employee will be sent to the border with an offer letter from the employer. And an offer letter is an internal document that details benefits and in terms of employment, and is between an employee and the employer. It doesn't contain the necessary details for a CBP officer to determine whether or not the position is actually a TN occupation. The duration of the employment, the compensation, the duties, all these necessary details that a CBP support letter for a TN must include are often missing in an offer letter. So make sure that letter that you're taking with you to apply for TN status is properly written and contains all of those necessary details. Be cautious if your employer is sending you with just an offer letter to a port of entry. The third reason we see these applications tonight is the credentials don't match the USMCA occupation. You need to have a degree in the field or a closely related field to the occupation that you're applying under. If there isn't a match between your degree and the occupation that you want to get TN status under, that could be a reason for a CBP officer to deny your application. And you need to make sure that if you got your degree outside of North America, that you have a degree evaluation that equates that to a U.S. degree. So the border officer can make a determination as to your qualifications and whether or not they meet the USMCA occupation and the qualifications that are listed under the USMCA occupations list. So make sure that your credentials match that USMCA occupation. The fourth reason we see for denial is CBP suspects immigrant intent or maybe an improper work arrangement in the United States. And the TN visa is commonly known as a non-immigrant visa. So if you show up at a port of entry and you demonstrate your intent to immigrate permanently to the United States, or maybe you've taken action that indicates your intent to immigrate to the United States, that's a very easy reason for a CBP officer to deny your TN status. Also, improper work arrangement. I've seen individuals who set up U.S. companies on advice of accountants so that they can pay themselves through this U.S. entity while they're on a TN visa, which a border officer could see as self-employment. Self-employment is not allowed on a TN status. So make sure that your arrangement for work in the United States is a proper fit for TN status, that it's an employer-employee client relationship, that there is no self-employment situation, or that you don't have immigrant intent. Number 5 reason we see these denied is inadmissibility issues or prior immigration problems. So you might have an issue in your past. Maybe you overstayed your status in the United States. Maybe you worked unauthorized. Maybe you have a criminal matter or issue that you need to take care of. Or even a previous denial at a port of entry, or for another visa type. All of these things must be addressed before you seek to apply for TN status at a port of entry. If you think that they're just going to go away, well, you're wrong. All CBP officers have access to databases where they can pull your criminal record, your immigration history, and they're very aware of when you were in the U.S., how long you were here, and whether or not you do have a prior immigration or criminal history. And if you have that, then you may need to address that before you seek re-entry into the United States under TN status. Bottom line, all of these issues can be addressed before you apply for TN status, and many of them can be overcome through proper documentation and proper vetting. And if you don't qualify, then in most cases, our advice would be not to apply. And in other situations, if you do have a more complex case or previous immigration issues, then applying at CBP may not be your best course of action. It may make more sense for you to apply directly through USCIS and get pre-approval before going to a port of entry. So in the end, make sure you understand the documentation, the qualifications, and you're properly prepared before you seek entry into the United States in TN status. If you have any other questions about TN visas or any U.S. immigration matter in general, we'd be glad to help you out. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel, give us a follow, give us a thumbs up, and share this video with others out there that you think might find this content helpful. Thank you for watching and have a great day.